Good morning, Amber. Okay, because we have a tight schedule, I think we should just go ahead and get started. So let's get going. And Mala, I can hear you still, right?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
Perfect. Perfect. So everybody, welcome. Welcome. We're really glad and we're grateful that you've joined us for this session on unconscious bias. As I said, we've got about a half hour, so this is going to be pretty fast paced. It's going to be an intro, I think, for some of you, and probably for a lot of you, it's going to be sort of a review of things you know already. And Mala and I want to be clear that we're only going to scratch the surface in our time together today. And what we hope that we can give you is some more tools that you can be equipped to understand and deal with unconscious bias. Hope to provoke some good thought and have a positive experience together. You can read our bios on the Twin Cities Startup Week site. So we're going to start with just each of us saying just one thing about ourselves. I'm Mark Hiemenz, and I just want to say that I'm a student of this topic as well as a trainer on it. So I appreciate the opportunity every time that I can do this because I always learn from the attendees in the session. Mala, what would you like to say?
Hi, my name is Mala. Welcome, everyone. And I would like to say I, too, am a student. I feel that this has really helped me in my everyday life to really unpack the biases that I have and also check myself, right? So I love this. Thank you.
Great, great. And just to let you all know also the way Hopin works, or at least the way I think is working for me, is I see the screen. So if there's anything on chat, Mala, if you can just sort of watch that and just let me know if there's something that we want to stop for.
Definitely.
All right? Okay, thank you. So many of you may have seen a drawing or a chart like this, and I've noticed a lot of these, especially in the last 6 months after COVID started. So I wanted to kind of start with this and share this learning idea that we all have a comfort zone. And then when we build on that, there's a growth zone. And then if we are kind of given too much information too quickly, we can go what is called the panic zone. So there's a lot of new things going on in the world, and a lot of people's comfort zones are probably smaller than they once were. So we hope that in the next half hour, and as you continue your learning, that you make room for yourself to go in the growth zone. And at the same time, if you are experiencing that you're kind of going beyond that into the panic zone, take a step back and take care of yourself. So hope that in this next about 25 minutes at this point, you all feel like we can grow together.
And here are some rules for engagement that we generally share when we're doing in-person sessions, but that because we are online, you can still take these rules to apply it to your everyday self. Share respectfully, let yourself be real, self-manage your boundaries, open up learning, participate fully, honor confidentiality, celebrate differences, and be generous to yourself and others. Things can come up when you're triggering, when you're working on, we're giving you these exercises and tools, things can come up and it can trigger you. Sometimes some of these rules can help apply as you're going through and unpacking what you're learning. Second is that as you know, feel free to share these rules on your own or with others that can help you navigate some of these challenging times, especially during COVID-19.
Thank you. Okay, so let's dig in. The goal of this session is really to help you turn unconscious bias into conscious awareness, and then that helps you then be able to have actions that are aligned with your values. And I talk a lot about alignment with values because unconscious bias, it's a fact of life and we all have it. And as we start to uncover it, we realize sometimes it actually goes against our own conscious professed values. So what we'll do in order to help with that is, number one, understand unconscious bias. So we'll give you a little bit about a definition and the biology behind it. some examples where we hope you can kind of see how it shows up in your own lives. And then number two, we'll give you a four-step framework that's pretty great, because it's really, as I said, 4 steps that you can use in any kind of situation, and then some tools to address it. And just so the tools are going to be something that we share in the what's it called on the for the conference, the resource library, sorry. So we have a resource list that has articles, it has some tests you can take yourself, it has some videos, all kinds of really good stuff. So we're not going to get into a lot of the tools in the session, but we'll definitely share those with you after the session. Okay, to get started, we'd like you to each sort of take a moment. If you have something that you want to write something down or type it out on your computer, you might want to do that, or you can just do this in your head. So we're calling this Your Most Trusted. So take just a few moments to think about, if you have a question or a problem or something you really want to run by somebody, your go-to people, who might be your top several people, 5 people or so. So think about, who are your go-to people when you really want to get good advice?
Mark, does this include, could I include family members as well?
You can include family members. We actually suggest that if you can think about people outside of your family for this exercise, it might be helpful. Either way is fine. So just take a couple moments to think about that. Okay, now that you've maybe had a chance to think about a few of your most trusted, if you were to describe them in terms of gender, in terms of race or ethnicity, in terms of age, in terms of education, any of the ways that we might use to describe people, how would these people look? How would you describe them? And then the question is, do you see a pattern that your most trusted tend to be very diverse, or do you see a pattern that maybe the people that you trust have a lot of things in common? And if anybody wants to share any of what they've seen on chat, I would invite that in. Mala, if you want to share anything that anybody would like to share.
I know when I first did this, Mark, most of the people that I had on my list looked like me and were the same age as me, and so there wasn't a lot of diversity there. Tasha says that all of mine are cisgender, married, and white, and majority woman.
Okay. And what we found when we've done this exercise in other sessions is this is very common, that people tend to have sort of a circle of close confidants who are similar in a lot of ways. And the reason we're doing this as the starting point is, again, as we're talking about unconscious bias, if those that you go to and you trust and you want to get advice from have a lot in common with each other and often have a lot in common with you, think about what that might say about how that reinforces the way you look at the world.
Mm-hmm. And Trudy says that she has majority women, mix of Indian American and white, all within 5 years of age.
Yeah. So again, just as you've shared, a lot of people, and myself included, we tend to have A lot of people we trust that we've maybe built up through the ages are the ages through the ages. It sounds like I've been around for hundreds of years. I just feel that way some days. So, so think about that as you think about when you want to get a different perspective. Maybe your closest circle of friends might not be the place to go sometimes, and maybe you might want to reach out. And one way to reach out, I know just for the conference here, is there's a way you can go in between sessions and network with people, and I've done that, and that's actually really, it's fun, and I think they give you just a few minutes on it, so it's sort of a speed networking. So thanks for the comments on that. Now, I'd like to give you a few examples of some stereotypes and how they are steeped in unconscious bias. This example here is a good Minnesota company, Land O'Lakes. Their butter package, as you see, they changed it, and they changed it just this year. And what I kind of want to share with you is, you know, for all those years that they had the package as what people would have said kind of in, you know, in the old movies, they would describe that as an Indian maiden. And look at what on the package, what she was doing was offering the butter to you, being meek and giving and generous. And think about what that means, kind of offering you the butter. And think then how at the same time we have this picture of Native American men as warriors, as fierce. The Washington NFL team had a name that they just decided in the last, you know, several weeks that they're going to remove. So there's this bias that we get here in this stereotype, both based on race and on sex, and think about what that means to us. And when we start removing those, we can start actually seeing people as opposed to mascots.
Next, think about a happy, healthy baby. Now, what do you picture in your mind? So did it look more like a certain type of baby, like the one on the left that you see? Now, this is the Gerber baby. As we all know, we've known the Gerber baby picture, the one on the far left. We've known these pictures for years. Did it look happy with the chubby cheeks, but very white? And so now we now have two Gerber babies, both in the middle and to the far right. And so when we think about happy babies, what do we subconsciously are thinking of, right? And so all we want is, yes, good nutrition for all children of all colors and all of abilities.
May I add this, Mala,
Yes.
that through all of the years when we had the one Gerber baby, and people who used the Gerber baby food had babies who looked like these other two or all kinds of things, they had this one Gerber baby that was the idea of what a baby should look like. And think of how when you change these, how you really open up people's eyes to what happy and healthy means.
So now think about of a young African-American man. What do you picture in your mind? Are you thinking of perhaps maybe an athlete, maybe a football player or a basketball player? Did you ever imagine in your mind a doctor or a dancer, like the images that you see here? I'm guessing that these weren't the images that you had in your mind, because I know that these weren't the images that I had in my mind when I first did this. So think about what this says about how people continue to label others in ways that fit our preconceived notions in many of our stereotypes.
Okay, I'm going to now go into a little bit of a definition and start with sort of the biology of what unconscious bias is. As you see on this slide, we receive 11 million bits of information our brains take in every moment. And what we can process consciously is 40 of those 11 million bits, which brings us, if you're quick at division, meaning that 99.999996% of what we actually are able to process is conscious. So for this purpose of unconscious bias, we'd like to give you a short and then just a little bit of a longer definition. The short one is unconscious bias is the mental shortcuts our brains take to help us make decisions quickly. Again, because we've got all kinds of things coming at us every second, 11 million bits, and we can process 40. We can't afford to do everything consciously. So our brain has to make some quick decisions. One example is often that people give is if you happen to be chased by a bear or a tiger, you're not going to consciously say, is this animal dangerous? How fast can I run the street? Your unconscious is going to help take over in a situation like that. So a little bit longer definition, and as I read this, I'm going to stress some of the words because I think that kind of helps us understand why it's an unconscious bias. So it's a bias that we're unaware of, happens outside of our control automatically, and it's triggered by our brain making quick judgments and assessments of people and situations. And it's influenced by our background, our cultural environment, and our personal experiences. So I'll let that just sink in for just a couple seconds. Okay, we are going to show a quick video that we think has a little humor in it, and I think also has a really great way of helping people understand how unconscious bias works.
The unconscious mind is amazing. It can process vastly more information than our conscious mind by using shortcuts based on our background, cultural environment, and personal experiences to make almost instantaneous decisions about everything around us. The snag is, it's wrong quite a lot of the time, especially on matters that need rational thinking. Here's a classic example. A bat and a ball cost £1 10 pence. If the bat costs £1 more than the ball, how much does the ball cost? Most people, including over 50% of students at some of the world's leading universities, get the answer wrong and say 10 pence. The answer is actually 5 pence. Many of us choose 10 pence without thinking. This is because our unconscious mind uses instinct, not analysis. So our unconscious is fallible. It's also biased. It makes snap judgments of people we meet, categorizing them according to gender, social, and other characteristics. In milliseconds, we judge whether somebody is like us and belongs to our in-group. These are the people we favor. So men might favor men, while women might favor women. However, we can belong to different in-groups, and we like to be part of an in-group that's powerful, which could mean a woman favoring a man over a woman. That's unconscious bias. All of us have it, and it colors our decisions without our realizing. For example, research reveals that if I were a man, you would be more likely to be nodding in agreement right now because people pay more attention to a male voice. The Royal Society fosters excellence in science, but this can only be achieved if we select from the widest range of talent. And that's not possible if unconscious bias is narrowing down the field for non-scientific reasons. To lessen the impact of unconscious bias, which is easier for us to notice in others, We are raising the awareness of unconscious bias to members of our selection and appointment panels. We're encouraging panel members to deliberately slow down decision-making, reconsider reasons for decisions, question cultural stereotypes, and monitor each other for unconscious bias. We can't cure unconscious bias, but with self-awareness, we can address it.
Now note that they gave us some ways to counter unconscious bias towards the end of the video, right? Deliberately slow down your decision making, reconsider reasons for decision, question cultural stereotypes, and monitor each other for unconscious bias. And we can do this on our own, but if you have a friend, it makes it easier and you can help each other, which will make you more aware and be able to make those changes.
Okay, I think I lost the slideshow. That was silly. I think I closed the slideshow when I closed the video. 1 second here.
Now, while Mark is looking for the video, does anyone have any examples that they want to share in the chat about a time when perhaps maybe they had to check their unconscious bias?
Okay, sorry about this. Any chat going on, Mala?
No chat's going on. No one's brave enough to put it out there. I know that I had a moment where, and I'll model when I was at Target, and I was pushing my cart, and there was a Black man walking toward a white couple, and my first instinct was, please don't ask me for money. And as I was walking past them, I realized that they were friends, and I was very embarrassed. I had to check my own unconscious bias. Why did I think that? You know, what made me go there? And then fix myself. And so going through these steps, and then Mark will be showing you later about how you can go through the steps to be able to unpack as to what your unconscious bias is doing. I think Alex had mentioned that, you know, he said, again, thinking of a happy, healthy baby, he was saying that was a wake-up call for him because his thought was a white baby, definitely. And so thank you, Alex, for sharing, for putting yourself out there and being brave, because, you know, sometimes we don't want to feel like we are bad people, right? Because we don't want to be like that. We don't want to lean into these negative biases that we have. And so for us, it's like when I thought of the man talking to the couple, I thought to myself, I am such a horrible human being. But realizing that that is my unconscious, media plays a lot into it. And so how do I check myself, right? Dante says, when I was asking all my white friends, you listen to rap and hip hop, when he moved to Minnesota. And so, yeah, it's like we have to kind of like check ourselves here. And this doesn't make us bad people. It just makes us people that we just need to like check our unconscious bias. And so I think Mark has got the slide up, and I think he will be sharing you some of the steps, the 4 steps that we can go through to help check ourselves.
Okay, thank you everybody for your patience. Okay, these are the 4 steps to help understand and deal with unconscious bias. So the 4 steps are awareness, acceptance, concern, and replacement. And as the title of this is, nip it in the bud. The earlier you can kind of go through this process, the more you can kind of deal with unconscious bias and we hope help you in your businesses. So so the 4 steps, this is how they work. So before you can do anything, we need to be aware of them. Which ones we have, the extent of how they are in our minds. The second, once we're aware of them and continue to become more and more aware of them, is accept that they do affect us in so many interactions with people. And as you see here, it could be in your business, partners, prospects, vendors, clients, also in your personal life. Third step is to understand that they have consequences, and when you're concerned about them, again, especially when you're doing a startup business, you don't want to leave anything on the table. Fourth is that once you kind of go through those first 3 steps, you actually can replace those tendencies with ones that more closely do affect your, do align with your values. So Mala and I have a very short role play to actually go through these 4 steps. Like most role plays, it's a little bit stilted, but it is actually based on a real life situation. And what I'm talking about is actually true of something I went through several years ago. Shall we go on the role play, Mala?
Absolutely. So Mark, how was your introduction to your leadership program?
Well, I don't know. At lunch, I was assigned to a table with 2 really big guys. One was a really macho Latino guy from LA, and the other's a Black youth football coach from Wisconsin. I was hoping that I'd feel comfortable being myself in this program, but I'm kind of nervous that some of us are coming from really different places. So the next time we talk.
Yep. Hey, Mark, it's been a few weeks. How's your program going? You were I know you were nervous about you might not be able to relate to some of the other participants.
Well, I certainly prejudged the 2 that I told you about wrongly. The macho guy from LA has a lot more in common with me than I thought. For one, he's gay. And when he spoke about his childhood, I saw so many parallels to my own. He's a much more complex person than I expected. Football coach also is so different than I imagined when I first met him. Instead of being the sort of hard-nosed guy that I think of as a football coach, he's probably the sweetest guy in the whole program.
What are you learning about yourself and your impressions of people?
Well, I can be way off base.
And how might that affect your ability to learn from others?
Well, if I shut down the possibility of connecting before I even know someone, based on what they look like and the stereotypes I hold without even thinking about them, I'm really going to expand my world. I'm realizing how insular my own world is.
Have you thought about how you're going to change those biases?
Well, one thing I can do is next time I catch myself assigning stereotypes to people before I know them, think about how lucky I am to have met these 2 guys. Stop myself from jumping to the same wrong conclusions before I close off the opportunity to meet some people who may be equally awesome.
You do that a few times, and you might even stop to jumping conclusions so easily in the future.
So in real life, we can't necessarily always do this in one quick conversation, but I hope that you saw through this role play that those 4 steps take place. You realize something happens. Once you're aware of it, you have this concern, and you can change it. So as you move forward in your businesses, think about whether there are these categories we have here or others, and think about a time where maybe you've had unconscious bias. Somehow it's triggered that you realize you had it. You might want to walk through something like that, either with a friend or kind of in your own head.
Mm-hmm. And so when we're coming up with time right now, all I'm asking is that I want everyone to just wrap up. I mean, we're just to commit to something, to do something. And so every day, take the tools that we have and commit to doing something at least maybe once a day, or practice this once a week.
Okay, so that was a very quick run through on unconscious bias. It shows 10:30, and since we started at about 1 minute after, I guess I'll say we might have 1 minute left or so. Any kind of comments on chat, please do share. And as I mentioned, we will share. I know the videos are all being recorded. They will be on in the resource library. We will also share a tool resource list, again, that has some great articles, some videos, some tests for yourself, And if any of you would like to talk to either of us, here's our contact information. We would be more than happy to continue a conversation with you, to talk to you if you want us to talk to some other people as well. So thank you so much for taking your time with us this morning. We very, very much appreciate the opportunity to share this with you.
Have a great day.